You're listening to WASTOIDS.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? Well, it's whatever you need it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships or at work or not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better, because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. As a special offer to WASTOIDS listeners, you can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/wastoids. That's betterhelp.com/wastoids. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. Hi, everything's great, and you're listening to WASTOIDS with Limbeck. Led by Patrick, Carrie, and Robb, MacLean, Limbeck has been mixing Orange County skater vibes with rustic, country-tinged indie rock since 1999. 2003's Hi, Everything's Great earned them a cult of devoted fans, and while they have operated in a somewhat limited capacity over the years since, the band has recently been back at it, hitting the road, which is where Mike Behrends caught up with them for this WASTOIDS chat. Patrick and Robb decamped to their minivan to record this talk outside of the Majestic Theater in Madison, Wisconsin, to discuss the group's origin story, the inspiration behind their sound, and tease a brand new album in the works. We even got an album title out of them. All that and more this week on WASTOIDS with Limbeck. Let's head into the conversation.
Okay, here we are. Limbeck, Patrick, Carrie, Robb, MacLean. I appreciate you guys taking some time today and letting me hang out inside of your touring minivan for this interview. I have been listening to you guys for like 18 years.
That's amazing.
Which is less time than you've been a band. You've been a band for longer than that, and I think I mentioned earlier, I've had Julia stuck in my head for probably 17, 18 years. I know.
You're welcome, Mike.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that it's hard to get out once it's up there. But I kind of want to start at the beginning and know how Limbeck came together, how it, like, your origin story a little bit.
We can't answer that. me and Pat
You're the wrong guy.
We're not the original members.
Literally, though, Mike, we are both not original.
Should we swap real quick with Justin?
This sounds like a joke, but both Robb and I were not in the original lineup of Limbeck, and Robb joined first.
Yeah. Okay, so Justin's the only original member.
Mm-hmm.
But when the band started, it was Justin, Matt, our original drummer, and a guy named Cy, and they were friends with Willie Ames's son in high school.
Who plays Buddy Limbeck played Buddy Limbeck on the show Charles in Charge.
Yeah, he was like the comic relief to Scott Baio.
Yeah.
on Charles in Charge. And because they had that friendship with that kid, they named their band Limbeck after Buddy Limbeck. But we changed... I don't think they knew how they were going to spell it until I joined the band, because I remember being in a conversation about I think it was when we were getting our first stickers made, which is when you become a band.
Right.
It's official.
Yeah.
Your first stickers and
And
1-inch pins.
Yeah, so we were doing that, and that's when someone was like, well, how do we spell it? How do we spell our band name? And we're like, do we do it like Buddy Limbeck
Like
does?
proper, like
Or do we change it?
L-E-M.
And we smartly changed it because it ended up being a really Googleable band name in the end.
And that's what.
That's
in
why
this
we achieved
world,
such-
that's what you want.
That's why we achieved such great success as a band.
So you usurped the original members and were able to take over the band.
Yes.
We did.
Fully,
We did
it
push
was
him
a
out.
full takeover.
Was it a hostile takeover, or was it just kind of like,
was-
things are going on, we're going to move this in a different direction?
Yeah, it was.
It was not us. It was not us.
Okay.
It didn't have anything to do with us.
What, the takeover?
We were just the only ones left.
You mean as where we are now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying it wasn't a hostile takeover.
Oh, for sure. Right.
we're pretty friendly.
Robb joined, and then Robb and I were playing together in high school, like just a fun high school band that let us get out of class.
Yeah.
And we Robb.
That's how
was-
knew. That's how I knew Patrick had some chops.
Yeah, and we like did harmonies and played guitar with each other in the last band. So he's like, "Oh, it'd be fun if Patrick was in this band."
Yeah.
So then I joined Limbeck.
Oh, because the original songwriter left, and that left me as the new songwriter, and we were looking to fill the fourth, because I was the fourth spot when I joined, and then we still wanted to have 4 people. So
Yeah.
there was another guy named Tom that was in the band for a while, and then we had nothing to do with any of this. But then when he left or was kicked out or whatever happened, which we didn't do, is when we needed to fill the 4th spot. We got Patrick.
I'm so glad we met when we were kids. And I'm so glad you never moved away. And you can always stay, never be away.
You guys have very, in a non-hostile way, taken over the band Limbeck, and now you're forming new members around it, around you two, Patrick and Robb. I'm curious, knowing your peers and the different bands that you've toured with and different bands that you've played with, I'm wondering how what I view as a pretty distinctive Limbeck sound originated. Like, how much of a decision was that we're not going to go in kind of the punkier, like emo-y realm that it seems like a lot of your friends' bands were playing in, and instead roll up with some very, like, almost, for lack of a better word off the top of my head, like some indie American twang to a certain degree? Like, how much of a decision was that? Like, let's do this, let's pivot to this when everyone else is doing that?
First, I have to disclaim that we are totally there in both of those places. Our first demo tape sounded like Green Day, and our second demo tape sounded like we didn't release it because of how it sounded, I think. No,
Yeah.
maybe
No, I didn't think
we
we-
might have
we didn't
recorded it with high-speed dubbing, but I don't think we officially...
Right, which was
very
right
emo.
in that pocket of emo.
Emo,
Of,
but
yeah,
not
like-
very good.
Yeah, really terrible.
And then our first record was still sort of emo, pop punk emo-ish.
yeah,
And but then I always say that it's because I lost my CD book and I started buying records from the thrift store, which
Yeah.
is true.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's really the reason that the sound changed. I feel like the thing that really happened was I wrote the song Brand New Orange, and I was like, this sounds like country music to me. Should I be embarrassed about this?
Yeah.
And I sort of decided to try not being embarrassed about it, and I showed it to everybody else, and they were okay with it. So we sort of tested the water. That's how I sort of remember it.
well, and then we did that little EP that was the,
Oh, right.
With our friend Rachel, who ended up singing on a bunch of our records. Robb
Right.
and her split a
Forgot about
little
that.
EP that wasn't under Limbeck. It was just like Robb
Just me and Rachel.
and Rachel, and then
And Patrick was on it.
Yeah, and I played guitar on it.
And it sounded
those-
much more folky.
That was like Ohio and Brand New Orange,
Yeah, and something else.
kind of where those songs came out. And then I guess we were like, well, shit, let's make these Limbeck songs,
Mm-hmm.
and started that direction
Yeah.
for us, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say also just as another little point in there in the shift was going out to Lawrence or Eudora, Kansas.
Yeah.
We made that like weird middle space gray area record with Ed Rose at what was then Red House studio.
Learned about a lot of cool music during that record. I wished that we were making stuff like that.
Yeah, like kind of more Midwestern kind of guitar Americana stuff. And I think he just kind of put that in our ear. And then next thing you know, I think maybe it was a year or so later that we came back to do demos to kind of like, I mean, that, you know, it was a different time in music, but we were making demos to try to get a record deal.
Yeah.
So we went out there and did an EP with him.
We still hadn't really changed our sound, though. Those demos were still...
But it was
we were on the way, I guess.
we were on the way, and we made a little 5-song demo EP and got a copy of Maxim Rock and Roll and a copy of I don't know what, like, more indie zine we would have had.
When?
Like, you know, when we were sending CDs to record labels. That's how you did. That's how you did.
Yeah, you're getting the info out of the magazine.
Yeah, it was like, let's send one to Sub Pop and let's send one to.
We sent them all over the
Jade
place.
Tree.
We even sent one to Victory.
Yeah, we did.
Which was the wrong label to send it to.
Totally. And we got a lot of non-answers, and we got some turned down letters, and then Doghouse Records. Really, because we put kind of a thing with our band through our history and our current days, just kind of attention to detail, making sure that our aesthetic decisions, like, you know, hit and make sense.
Yeah.
We did a little screen print packaging and made this cool package because that's how you got music out in that day, you know? So to have our thing kind of pop amongst the noise, visually and audially.
That was secondary.
Audially.
I'm just kidding.
What's the word?
Auditorily? Is that a word?
What's the word? Sonically.
There it is.
Sonically.
Yeah. Sonically.
So, my bad. They were like, oh, this sounds interesting for where they were at. And they had a kind of a history of, you know, Chamberlain. I think Chamberlain was maybe on the record label before us putting out records. And they had some projects that were kind of more in that space. I don't know, and saw something in us. So then they came out and
I'd say, though, I think that How Everything's Great was a surprise to them. Like, because the demos that we shopped to them had a much different... I mean, we were starting.
Maybe, but
this whole process was slow, and also How Everything's Great is not a country record at all.
I'm not.
Even
saying,
though some people say
I'm not saying it is. I think
early.
maybe they just saw something, you know, a weird, somewhat unique take on, you know, indie /
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's like here I'm about to tell you guys what I think that record is, but
Please.
I mean it's because you're right, it's not country, but there was like at that point in time a very almost like refreshingly country sound to it, to when I first heard the record, it was played for me. I believe it was mutual friend Hutch who played it for me, and I just assumed that this was a band from Lawrence, Kansas, from that scene that was happening there, or a band from Iowa or Nebraska, and I was blown away that it was probably MySpace at that point or something, where it was just like, these guys are from Southern California. I did not see that coming, and so that was very fascinating to me. Pivoting to the fact that you guys have been a band for so long, 20 years as a band, 19 years as a band, is a very long time to be a band, but it's an even longer time to be a human being in a sense, you know, and thinking of all of the different life things that happen in 20 years of existing on this planet. Who were you guys then, at that point in time? It was probably your early 20s? Like, what person were you then?
I think about that a lot, and I feel like I'm not. That's not me. Like, I'm so different in many ways. I'm probably mostly the same, but I just really like. Also, I don't want to go back there. Like, I feel like I just don't even know if I'd recognize myself.
Yeah.
if we could meet up.
Yeah, I can't help but just feeling like jaded, but not. I don't know.
Like you're jaded now.
Yeah, like I'm jaded. I was so much more wild-eyed and like thinking things were a possibility.
True.
And
yeah, like also, but the same token, I guess. But if my answer sounded pessimistic, the other thing, the flip side of that is that at that age, you hadn't tried enough stuff to know not to try them.
Right.
And that was like a real that being naive is such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Like like I like to record music, and some of the first recordings I ever did when I didn't know anything were way better than everything I did for the next 10 years until I finally got sort of a clue.
Yeah.
I guess that's where I like now I'm jealous of that naivety that I had.
I was going to try to say that word, but I was like, I can't get that out of my mouth right now for some reason.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that was charming and probably a good thing for us being young dudes playing music and traveling around.
From cult horror and sci-fi to B-movie splatterfests, to underground music documentaries, concert films, public access shows, indie label showcases, and original programs, Night Flight Plus is the coolest place online for weird and riveting viewing. Right now, WASTOIDS listeners can get $10 off an annual membership. That means access to Night Flight's library for only $29.99 a year. Head to www.nightflightplus.com/promo code and enter WASTOIDS in all caps. That's WASTOIDS. Enter promo code WASTOIDS at nightflightplus.com/promo code and get back in the days.
Yeah, there's a level of earnestness to it, like blind earnestness, where it's like, hell yeah, we're gonna shop all these labels and we're gonna send a demo to Sub Pop. Of course, Sub Pop's gonna love our shit,
right?
But like, I think it's kind of that sort of like young, wild-eyed, I don't know, the way that we operate when we're younger that allows bands to kind of thrive in that moment. I mean, obviously, lots of bands don't get record deals and make fantastic records, but there's a drive there when you're younger that like you said, or I forget which one of you said it, but you get older, you get a little less jaded, a little bit less of a chip on your shoulder, and maybe wouldn't go so head first into like full-time music.
Yeah, I sort of feel it coming full circle though, because I spent 10 years, I think, or maybe a little bit more, learning what I don't want to do because I was embarrassed by something that is said in the lyrics, or like I just didn't like a song or the way that we recorded it or whatever. And so it kind of like kept knocking me down until there was a point where I felt like I couldn't write any songs because I didn't want to put anything out there.
Yeah.
But then the more time has gone by and the older I get, like the reason old people are so grouchy is because they don't care what anyone thinks about them. And so I'm sort of I'm not going to be one of those people. I'm going to try really hard not to. But
I think that's a good point, is that, and then now you get to where we are now, where actually I feel like we've done more in the last couple years than we have in a decade, maybe.
I feel like the floodgates have opened now because there's nothing on the line, and there's no reason for me to like be embarrassed about anything anymore. Almost no reason.
But then also I feel like the appreciation of all like the young work that we did, and then it's like, well, shit, we can't just drop that. Like now we have this excuse to travel and still do that in some form, albeit a different form than it was.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah, it allowed you to come full circle, because I was going to ask if Robb, you were talking about if you ever got to meet who you were then, and does that lead to any, I guess, we're not always proud of the songs we write when we're in our early 20s. So how do you contend with still singing those songs today?
I like it a lot more, because I feel like what I'm sort of realizing, like with the more time between writing those songs, is like at the time I wrote them, I loved them.
Yeah.
Which is it's nice that you record the record with the songs right away because you love them when you make the record. Then you play them for a while. You actually get better at playing them, and that's when you should have made the record.
Yeah.
But then you start to get bored of them, or you've had more. It depends on who you play with. But sometimes we played with so many different types of bands that some nights I would love our songs, and some nights I'd hate them.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I'd be like, just sort of not wanting to be an oddball on the bill.
Yep.
Like, why didn't we do it like
Yeah,
that?
so I would have. There's phases of our band where I did not like the music we were doing so much, but now that I look back and I'm like, I want to be that band again sometimes, like the earlier Limbeck. Like I want to. It changes every day for me.
Yep.
But so now in hindsight, I'm learning to appreciate the songs that I used to sort of like dread playing.
Yeah. That's awesome. Full circle.
Yeah.
Full circle.
You got through that dark period of just hating the music that you wrote at one point.
It's not hatred. It's just like, like everyone would always want to hear Ohio, and I'd be like, do we have to play that song? I just don't like the way we're doing it right now.
Oh, yeah.
And so we try not to put it on the list, and then there was a time where everyone always did an encore, even for the bands that weren't headlining.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun.
And it was like, oh my God, we just have to put these songs on because we don't want an encore because we don't deserve it. We're playing second or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah. So now I'm like, well, I don't care. Like, why wouldn't I make someone who wants to hear that song happy? Like, that's I mean, that's
If whatever they connected to is meaningful, you can have it.
Yeah, and
I'll give it to you gladly.
And I guess I was starting to feel like maybe instead of me being sort of like bored or embarrassed about playing the song, I could just be happy that someone else is happy.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But that in turn makes me like the song again, and now I'm like, that's actually a pretty good song.
Does it take you? That song doesn't feel like you were making up a scenario.
I'm bad at making up scenarios. And I've tried to like use current events and stuff to make music, and I just suck at it. Sometimes I've tried to dip my toe into like being political, and I just can't do it. All I can do is tell you something that just happened.
Where you're driving.
Jeremiah went to work.
Has Limbeck ever stopped being a band? I know that there have been times where you weren't active, or weren't, there was a little gap between releases or something, but was there a time where like, we are not a band anymore? We have
No.
I'd say
up.
we haven't even gone on a hiatus. We just sort of like.
I think that was purposeful too, because
we went accidentally. Well, we did go on a hiatus, you might say, but we did never say.
No, it wasn't
bye
like
for a while, guys. We're going on a hiatus.
Yeah, we don't need any hoopla like. No, this is our last. Like, we just thought that was a cheese ball move to be like, this is our last tour.
Right.
Boo-hoo. Like, come and see us. And it's just like, no, like, we kind of slowed down to a crawl, I think. That's, there was a couple tours, and then maybe one that was a little shorter, and then we did a little week-long thing. And, and then it was just like things would pop up as our lives changed and we got jobs and,
there was a while where
to real life, but
there was a while where I felt like I thought we should have called something our last show, and sort of like given people a chance to see us before we stopped playing. But in the long run, it worked out better because now we could play all the time without calling it a reunion show.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably better. That makes me feel better about myself.
I think maybe that might be a different choice for other bands, but I think it's the right choice for just our approach. Just because it's just like
we're no drama band.
We're no drama. Yeah. Leave the drama at home, man.
You mentioned getting jobs, which was something that I wanted to talk about, because when Limbeck, around High, Everything's Great, and which is. That's got to be one of the best titles for a record. Just, I love it. But then the following record was Let Me Come Home. Mm-hmm. So were you were full-time band at that point? Full-time music?
I think it was, full-time gig.
Because you guys, I remember you guys just touring constantly. But then things slowed because you do have jobs. Like Patrick, you mentioned your work at Volcom as a creative director.
Art director.
Mm-hmm. And then, Robb, what occupies your time?
I'm a software developer now.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Wow.
I got there via being a clerk at a record store, which is really cool. Because I started working at the record store, and then they asked. I knew a little bit about computers, and they asked me to figure out something with the point of sale system, which is like a database. And so I started, and I was like, you mean instead of filing records and standing behind the counter and answering questions about bands that I have to pretend I know about, you mean I can go sit in the closet and like dork around on the computer?
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I sat in the storage closet with like products falling on me as I worked, and I learned how to do the database, and I was able to like take that education and turn it into a nice like talking point on an interview for a software job.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. The reason why I ask is because your songs on your first 2 records, and even the third, because because you guys write how you do, you're in so many different locations. It sounds like a band on the road. You're in Arizona. You're waking up in downtown Minneapolis. You're over the Colorado River. You're in Ohio on some steps. How does now having full-time jobs, software developer, an in-house art director, how does that influence your songwriting when you're not on the move all the time, knowing that Limbeck songs are very, all around the world, or not the world, but all around the country. You're on the move.
For a while, it made me just not want to write any songs. I'm like, I don't actually want to tell people what just happened right now.
Yeah. So
not very exciting.
So do you feel? So then, is there this pressure to go into a previous headspace when you were kind of more itinerant?
I've done that occasionally, but that's not really where I go. I feel like I've started using more metaphors.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while, I would just talk about my cat. I wrote a lot of songs about my cat when I was getting back past my writer's block. And then Patrick bought me How to Write One Song, the book by Jeff Tweedy. And he talks a lot about free writing. And I was like, brilliant. So I started free writing. If I had a song that was starting but wasn't really going anywhere, I would just take whatever like ring or verse that I had, and I would write that down, and then I would just keep going, and it would bring me somewhere else. And then I was just sort of like, I don't know if you never know where it's gonna go, and you pick some really good stuff out of that free writing.
How often are you involved in the music part of it? Or not the music part of it, but you're sitting down, you're writing, you obviously have a guitar. Do you ever roll up with a song or a situation that you want to have him then put lyrics over?
Not usually. It's more like Robb will have some structures or some loose idea, either a pretty close to finalized idea or some parts of an idea.
We do talk about ideas sometimes before we write anything. One time we haven't done this song yet, but it's really good. Patrick sent me an idea of a guitar riff that was really awesome, and I came up with some stuff on it that we like. But I'd say where Patrick comes in is like I'm not gonna do something by myself.
Right.
Like I just feel like I'm not. I don't know. It's I don't want to be a one man show.
Yep.
And I feel like Patrick is the one that like makes sort of like an okay melody turn into a really interesting song.
Okay. How is the current music landscape different now from when you guys were starting out as Limbeck?
Oh, it's fucked, Mike.
I
feel fortunate that we had the path that we did, because our path going from sending out CDs to record labels, which is not a thing anymore, to selling CDs and cassette samplers, into vinyl starting to be a thing for us, and then it went to Napster land, where that was, I think it was I was on the fence about being very frustrated with it at times, because we'd play shows and not sell any records, and that was really hard.
Yeah.
But also, like, in a kind of flip that to being like, fuck Lars Ulrich, and like that's how people hear about stuff, is passing it on. Maybe this is a blessing for us to have music travel a little bit more freely, because obviously this was pre-streaming, so having our music out there, maybe this will get us more fans.
Right.
So I feel like I flip-flopped in my head all the time.
I constantly start conversations, like a question like you just asked, and be like, man, it just like totally devalues music. And it's like sometimes I feel like music isn't that big of a deal because like we're writing it. But then I think about all the times where I'm like incredibly bummed out, and the only thing that can like get me back to where I need to be is like a record that I really like. And I'm like, actually, music is super valuable, even though it's free to everybody now.
Mm-hmm.
So I start getting in that headspace and like so annoyed that somebody is collecting money on this and it's not the bands.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, but that's only really bothering really large bands. Like for the rest of us, it's probably way better to get faster exposure and get people to come see you play and buy a shirt.
Right.
Because you actually get that money.
Yeah, for sure. And also, it seems like your following is so loyal that there's not enough vinyl copies of Hi, Everything's Great out there to satisfy your fan base.
Yeah.
I just looked an hour and a half ago just to see, and like they're on eBay for $99.
Yeah.
Which is wild. $70 on like Discogs.
It's pretty cool, totally.
What was the username?
John underscore cheese.
Patrick is rad at eBay.
Yeah.
But I think to further that, I think I've been more excited, and Rob and I have talked about a lot of these ideas about how we move forward in the future on music, and we have this thing that we did for our like somewhat ongoing side project that we call the Young Dudes.
I remember that.
This kind of whatever. I don't know. Whatever. But we did this thing where
Good Guys, Bad Band.
we did screen prints of like a LP cut, like a 12-inch by 12-inch art piece, and had that be kind of like the
physical thing
existence of
for
this
the song or the
of this EP,
EP
that we did, and then you get the download code when you buy the art.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's exciting, where we could go, just because where my head's at, like in like being aware of certain artists and stuff, and I think like having Jesse Ledoux do our last record cover and stuff, like what could we do with art that gives a physical existence to music in a different way,
right,
that Spotify can still exist and be its own thing, but then owning, I guess that means, because we can't always press vinyl. Like, it would be awesome to press vinyl all the time.
Well, and also not everybody wants the vinyl. A lot of people do.
Well, it would be it'd be fun to do a short pressing, but that's expensive, and it's time consuming, and blah blah blah. So I think there's an excitement for me and you too, like on what we can do to make releasing music exciting and a little different than just throwing stuff on Spotify and saying, oh, it's here's our single,
Yep. Yeah, and to that point, you had mentioned that you've been more active now, like in the last little bit, than you have in the last 10 years, which brings me to kind of a wrap-up question of what is next for Limbeck, as it sounds like you're kind of brainstorming on how to cleverly get people to continue to pay for your music so that it can benefit you guys.
We were just saying, how should we have done it?
Yeah, oh, right.
But tonight is our last show.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding.
No, because at the beginning of the year you teased some new music and new dates, and that's why you're here in Madison, Wisconsin, inside of this minivan. So what's on the horizon in the next year?
We're working on a record, slowly, but I want to say surely, but we're actually not really working on it. But we did start, and we just need to get going again. I had sort of like some stuff come up that stopped me from working on it, so it's kind of falls in my court right now. We record a lot of drums for it.
Yeah,
Too much
I think we're
working on a record.
No, I think it's tricky to figure out the dynamic, because like half of you wants to do what we used to do and go to a studio and be able to spend a couple days.
Yeah,
I think there's like the reality of time being not so plentiful, so the ability that we have to do stuff at our own houses and on the fly, that may not be the most the best sonically or whatever
cohesive,
but maybe that's how we have to get there, and I feel like we're still figuring that out.
Right now we're calling what we're doing, we're not calling them anything, because they might be demos or we might be working on the record. It's the stuff is,
I thought you were gonna drop the album name.
Do we have one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Should we drop it?
Yeah, we should.
Okay. It's called The Old Stuff. It's because everyone always says, like, oh, do you like Limbeck? And everyone's like, oh yeah, I like the old stuff. I don't know if people do that as much as they used to, but a while ago, I just remember that's always the answer you'd get, because the new stuff was never cool. It wasn't cool to like the new. It was cool to be the one that listened to it when the old stuff came out.
And then the album after the old stuff is called The First Record.
I want everybody who is listening to this to know that that Limbeck's manager, John Cheese, is sitting next to us in this van and was shocked that Robb just told the title of the new coming record.
That's been in the work. I mean, we've been holding on to that title for a while now.
The format told us the name of their record before it came out, and then we named a song Dog Problems. We named a song Bird Problems, and we tried to get that out before the record
It was a power play.
But our producer shelved it on Let Me Come Home. So it didn't come out until the third record.
That's amazing.
Third, fourth.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time.
This was fun.
I know that this was very fun. I think it's more fun than if we were in that bar
Totally.
inside of the Majestic Theater.
Getting yelled at.
Yeah, getting yelled
Bar
at.
manager.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thanks,
Mike.
Mike.
All right, cool.
Leaving now, and it's so nice out. I think that I could blind myself watching the sun go down.
Thanks for listening to Wastoids With. I'm Jason Woodbury. I produce the show. This week's episode features original music by Sam Means and selections from the Hi Everything's Great B-Sides collection, which you can get from Limbeck over on Bandcamp. We want to thank Mike for hosting this talk. Find him online at MikeBehrends.com. That's MikeBehrends.com. And you can follow him online at BanjoTeeth. We've got lots for you to check out over at wastoids.com, including a great pop-punk themed episode of our show Click Vortex, and an incredible live set from Texas shoegaze band Blushing. Head over, and if you like what you see, be sure to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Want to share your favorite Limbeck song or anything else? All you have to do is call us to get in touch, 1-877-WASTOIDS. Give us a ring, and we will play your message on an upcoming show. All right, take it easy until next week. Thanks for tuning in to Wastoids.
Freak out!